Yeah, Jeff has been he's made a lot of this possible, so thank you, Jeff. And thanks everyone who's going to support the transition you're making. It's crucial that we come through and support the nonprofits in this community, and there's a lot of them that are doing great work, but I'm really happy to see what you all are doing and the space you've created here. So usually I start these meetings with a meditation and a prayer, but I'd like to welcome Shumash Elder Art Cisneros up to say a few words and set the intention for the meeting. So Art, if you'd join me. Can everyone see this okay? All right, good. Art Cisneros.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And thanks to my dear friend David Williams, which made it possible for me to be here. He invited me, and I had a chance to meet with Matt, and we just briefly discussed some of the things that I do in the community. My name is Art Cisneros, and I belong to my mother's clan of Chumash people, which come from the Montecito area, and I have been here all my life, except for growing up at my grandfather's adobe house in Santa Ynez for my informative years. Currently, the discussion, as I understand it, is about energy in a lot of its different forms. And David and I have been working on bringing awareness about the nature of the effluent from desalination, and energy and what it takes in order to operate some of the things that would make us sustainable. So energy is at the center of everything. So what I wanted to do tonight is bring us all into a different awareness about where energy comes from, or what energy is, or what we have around us that comes from the energy of our mother. And so in a brief moment, it would be a meditation, a prayer. And so if everyone could just put your things out of your hands, make your hands free, get comfortable, and take a moment to bring yourself here. I always like to get attached, get connected to my mom, so I send my energy field into the ground. So I send a ribbon of light into the mother, and I send it all the way down to the center, to her heart. And I ask to be embraced by the love of my mother. Bring that into my heart, open up my top chakra, and get connected to the stars, and ask for help from the stars to come through me and into my heart. I am now connected to the heavens and the earth in the center of my being. So I'm asking for help in this moment. I'm asking for some clarity, some guidance, some inspiration, in gratitude for all the wonderful people that are here listening to the same call from our mother. We want to take care of you. We want to give you our love in whatever expression that happens to be for us individually, whether it's creating new technologies and all that that would include, or to support those efforts by all of us that are in relationship and helping to keep our mother healthy. So I'm going to send this little blessing in my own language. We're asking to get connected to that little spark that's in your heart. We send our love through our heart to all of our relatives, our partners, all those people that we're in relationship with. Thank you all for deciding to be here tonight and to share your love with each other. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Thank you. Hey, I don't want to take up too much time.
That's great.
But I'll be available to talk. Also, I just want to briefly ask or share that Marshall Jack and I have been working on water ceremonies through the community here, and we'll be available to share more about that later. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Appreciate it. Ooh. That was lovely. Gosh, I'm going to have to step my game up. That was really powerful. Thank you. So tonight we have, as you can see on the agenda, a number of things to cover, but one that I'm really happy to introduce and something the Academy is excited about doing here and something that people have been asking us for a long time at these meetings is, all right, I want to help. I want to reduce my carbon footprint, and I would like to make sure my lights don't go out if there's a transmission line failure. One of our big issues for the newcomers, give me 1 second, I'm gonna switch mics. Is this one better? Yeah, it really is. Sorry about that. All right, so one of our big issues at the Academy is something we stumbled upon when Bob, our director of research, who you'll be hearing from later, was reading through reports from Southern California Edison. And in one of their reports, they talked about a serious risk to the power system in Santa Barbara. And their report actually went on to detail the possibility and their extreme concern about the possibility of our one transmission line that brings in the vast majority of our power from down south potentially washing out in a flood or in a storm, or falling over in an earthquake or being knocked down by a wildfire. So that got our attention. Like many people in this community, we didn't realize that we were hanging by a thread at the precipice of potentially facing a blackout, and not just a couple days, but potentially for a month or more, depending on the severity of the series of storms from an El Nino. If y'all have been paying attention, obviously there's an El Nino brewing, and some people are predicting that it could be stronger than the big one in '98. The big one in '98 washed out some of the foundations, none of the towers fell down, but that was what really got Southern California Edison's attention, that these towers, this how many miles long is it? 50 mile long stretch of towers is at risk. Any one of them could go down in a storm. So the good news is we have the perfect solution, and it's something we've been looking at for a long time, and it actually applies here. That solution is a community microgrid, and you'll hear more about our work trying to get the power resources that we need to be built where we use the power here in town or nearby, so that if those towers go down, as a community, we'll be okay. But tonight, the other thing we want to talk about is what you can do to lower your carbon footprint and potentially introduce resilience into your own home. And that entails a project that we're starting with Allen Construction called Powering Paradise. And the goal, and it's on these handouts you have on your seats, it's essentially to make our homes safer and to lower our carbon footprint as a community. So for those of us who are interested in solar, batteries, solar water heaters, and a number of other energy efficiency devices, Sean and I will be talking a little bit about that, and Sean will take questions. Sean, if you actually want to come up and join me, we're just going to hang out and chat a little bit about this. And I want to say first that the reason we chose Allen Construction is because as you all know, Dennis Allen's been a staple in this community on the renewable energy and the home building front for 33 years. And our commitment with this project, the SBR3 project, is to focus on companies that are local and are really willing to build jobs in the community and who are part of Santa Barbara. So Sean, if you want to give us a little bit about Allen Construction and about the various things that are going to fall under this category, I'd really like that.
Thank you for having me. This is a fantastic turnout, and I'm really grateful to be here and kind of be back involved in the community. I don't know if you're planning on doing a bigger intro, but I'll give a brief intro. Came here in 2000, went to Santa Barbara City College, and I was actually the founder of the Santa Barbara Student Sustainability Coalition up there with a friend. So been doing some work here for quite some time. That's transitioned into a family, and I own a house in Ojai. And I've been involved in renewable energy ever since I graduated. From a business perspective, and bringing this technology to the market, providing for my family, but I'm also extremely motivated and passionate about not only carbon footprint reduction, but also resiliency. It's a big part of what I'm doing. And energy storage and battery systems, which we'll talk about, they've been available for a while, but the market hasn't really picked them up. And I think this is a huge opportunity to really look at the feasibility, and you as members to assess it and make your own judgments. Does this make sense for you? Will the Tesla Powerwall make sense when you add all the other costs other than just the battery? What other technologies are available? So the stuff that we are working on with Allen Construction to not only integrate with our commercial and residential and new construction projects, but to also go out and retrofit existing homes to reduce the energy efficiency or the energy consumption of homes and commercial buildings, while at the same time producing power from their resource of the roof, which is an amazing resource to make power. So that's kind of the combination effort as a builder, as a leader in green building and energy for 33 years. Definitely following in big shoes from Dennis Allen. He's done amazing things in the community. And I think this is just a great opportunity for us to make a nice partnership with your organization to, and we'll talk about it more, but to really get this out there, to find savings, to also give back to the organization as well, and to promote the mission. Some of the, I guess you want to go into a little bit more what it is, and then we'll, yeah.
So we'll go into more of the details of the program, and we're also going to have Sean come back next month and do a full presentation about all the offerings. This is more of an intro. But the great part is, and the offering that's been incredibly generous from Allen Construction, is that they're going to take 10% off if we can get enough people to do it. 10% off everyone's cost of installation. I mean, the whole package, and then an additional 10% of that remaining total amount is going to be donated to the Academy. So I think we should get a round of applause actually for Allen for that. And there's no upper limit. We want to get 20 people at least to take a look at this, and they're going to be coming out and doing energy audits. Why don't you say more about actually the opportunities and the different products?
So, I think it just makes total sense. This is kind of the group discount type program where we're going to capitalize on that. Part of the program is that everyone does the work at the same time, so we can order in bulk. We can get a container of solar panels if we have that many people, and really get the efficiencies of scale, which is how this makes sense for us to do that type of discount. It's actually a pretty big chunk of the overall project to give 10% off and 10% to the Business Academy, so we definitely want to make that scale work. In terms of our overall services and what we're bringing to the table, it's more than just solar electricity. It's the beginning of it is to assess the home and find out how much energy you're consuming, which is how much power over time. It's watts times time. That's what energy is. So it's really your consumption. Are you plugging in your electric car? Do you have your spa on? Do you have your lights on longer than you should? Do you have lights that aren't LEDs? And do you want to look at some options? There's a lot of factors that go into energy consumption of a home or a business. So what we do in the beginning is we look at the home and find out, are there any low-hanging fruit that maybe we don't make any money on and don't do anything with, but we recommend maybe go down to the electrical supply house and look at the most current LED lights. It's changing daily. The technology is rapidly advancing, so definitely recommend that. So once we identify with an energy audit, which we can do a visual energy audit. We're not going to bring all our fancy tools out. We do have fancy tools, but really we can just do a quick walkthrough and let you know where the opportunities might be. There's also great partnerships with the County of Santa Barbara, the Empower Santa Barbara County program. They have a free energy coach, so that's a little bit more in depth, and we might point you in their direction as well if you want some more advice. So we start with the energy audit, and we just talk, and we find out what your needs are. Do you want to go solar? Are you worried about the aesthetics? Maybe you already have solar and you want to add batteries to your system. What's the feasibility of that? What's the what type of electrical work needs to be done, and ultimately what does that cost? So from energy audit to maybe recommending some home energy efficiency improvements. There are rebates available by the utilities that were a part of those programs, financing as well from the county. Solar electricity with batteries and generators to accommodate the resiliency aspect of this type of a program. If one of you is in a neighborhood, just put this into perspective, and there is an emergency and the power goes down, and maybe some of your neighbors have oxygen tanks or they have special needs. If you have power in that emergency, you've just completely contributed to the resiliency of your local community, because you could open your doors if you wanted to and help that out, because you'll have power if you have solar and batteries. So I think the resiliency component of this is not to be underestimated. In fact, I think it should be probably the biggest promotion, and obviously it does come down to cost. When you add batteries and all this technology, it starts to raise the cost quite a bit, so we have to look at that. So definitely we'll focus on that. And that could also include backup generators as well. So if it's cloudy for a week and we don't have any solar to recharge those batteries, then you might want to have a little backup generator. So we could consider that as the backup to the backup. And then also solar hot water. It's a great way to heat your water. So if you want to have showers pretty much all the time, if we did have that emergency situation, I'm not a doomsday by any means, but there is the potential, like we talked about. I've read this report. That was news to me. Like when I talked to Bob about this report and looked at Edison and the CPUC filings, it's real. This isn't, and it's real that they want to build, the plant out in Goleta to accommodate that need as well. So I think we can definitely see some huge impact locally. So yeah, that's kind of it. I think that those are the major aspects of the program. So we can. More questions?
Yeah, so we'll take questions, and I just want to have everyone take a look at the form that you have on your seat. And basically, the options are if you want to find out more about lowering your energy bills, doing your part to combat climate change, and making sure I have backup power in case of a blackout, or any other questions you have that are energy and construction related. Does anyone have anything they want to ask Sean while we have him? Yes.
So typically what we do is just purchase programs. So a lot of solar is like the Sunrun or Solar City that are locally, based, or, they do a lot of work here. They're more of a utility provider. You could really look at that as it's a big part of bringing a resilient and renewable energy grid. But you own these systems. We do have the options where you could not own them. So yes, to answer your question, totally transferable, just like any other fixture of your home. Yeah. In fact, I'm working on an old system that was a battery system. I was working on it today. It was 10 years old and replacing the batteries, and they're fixing it to sell to a new homeowner. So,
is that an advantage?
I think if you have the money and capital to pay for it, you should definitely own it. There's no reason you would want to lease it, just because the savings are so much better in your pocket than other companies. Yeah, great question. I am going to be putting together I will. Her question was, if the grid goes down and you have solar, what happens? And I was mentioning, I'll be putting a pretty detailed presentation together for next week, which will have slides and pictures of how all this stuff works. But just to answer that now, it's the solar actually per code and per safety requirements, most solar has to turn off when the grid goes down. That's where the batteries come in. You can add auxiliary equipment that will allow you to feed what we call critical loads panels, where we identify you want to have your security system, or you want to have your lights, maybe your kitchen and your refrigerator going no matter what. We can isolate those and have them powered. So that's an option. And then there's also new technology that if the solar goes out, the inverters that change it from solar power DC to AC of your home, they have a little plug where you can actually plug in when the sun's shining. So it's a kind of a nice feature, but it's by no means going to be providing you with the power you need for your home. Answer your question? Yeah. All right. In the back, maybe?
If you're renting your home and you're not owning your home, can you still get solar panels? Is it like a non-invasive way, or is that this kind of goes off the transferring question? Like if I want to get solar, but I'm a renter.
You'd have to talk to your landlord.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if let's say we open an account and whatever, and I move, and the solar panel's there, do you take what happens? Is there a thing for a non-homeowner, like a route?
So that's community choice aggregation, which I think you guys might be talking a little bit about on a larger scale, where if you're a renter or if you live in a house that's completely shaded, you'll have the ability to purchase power from the utility once it gets approved, and we do a lot of policy work to make that happen. You'll be able to choose to purchase solar power instead of grid power, or it is grid power instead of coal and natural gas and nuclear. You'll have that choice. And that's an extremely powerful tool that we're working on locally to make that happen. If you wanted to buy solar panels and put them on the roof and get the owner's approval, do it, and then you could take them with you when you leave. It's something you could take off the roof if you wanted to. Yeah.
Can you explain that further? My son lives in Sacramento. He's paying $10 or so a month, guarantees having green energy.
Yeah.
How does it
Yeah, so I don't. It's more about painting your electrons green. You know, it's not necessarily all those electrons are going to be green, but the reality is, if they say I'm gonna, okay, I'm sorry. So son lives in Sacramento and actually has the ability to buy renewable power through a community choice aggregation, and the question was, well, how do we know that power is actually solar? So what's nice about that is, let's say you use 1,000 kilowatt hours in 1 month, and the utility is mandated to buy 1,000 kilowatt hours from a renewable energy plant. So the more people that choose to spend an extra $10 a month to have renewable energy, then the utilities will be mandated to buy more power from wholesale suppliers of renewable, which means they'll have to contract with more utility scale solar plants to build. So it basically is your ability to grow the renewable grid to 100% if every city and state did it, because everybody's going to elect into that, you know, or most everybody, I'd imagine. Maybe not.
And that's one of the main differences that we've been talking about here, right? Which is that we really want the opportunity to create domestic, meaning within Santa Barbara, renewable energy. Because even if we're paying for green energy through the grid, through a community choice program, which we were helping to advocate for, it is actually not local power. And local power is the way you really guarantee that it's green. You can go out and look at the solar farm and say, that's what my dollars are supporting, instead of a mystery mix of energy that they say is green through an accounting mechanism. And I don't want to take anything away from that as a transition towards renewable energy, but local is almost always better. Same for food. It's the same principle too. Exactly. Yes.
Barbara, right? Yeah. Sorry, I helped Barbara a number of years ago with solar, if you remember me. So it is permissible if you add additional technology. So you'd have to add batteries, add some electrical equipment, but absolutely, yeah. So those of you that have solar, it's usually feasible to do that, you know, and at least to get some numbers and see what it's like. Yeah. Yeah, so we have to essentially, like, you have your whole electric panel, if you look at the supply of electricity that comes into your home, it goes into all the branch circuits, you know, the circuit breakers. And so you'll want to identify the ones that, in the event of an emergency, you want to have power, because it's very expensive to power the whole meter with batteries and so forth. So you want to identify what are the most critical loads, which is something everyone that's interested at all in this could start thinking about. What do I want to have running when the grid goes down? And then that's how we are able to size systems with batteries and so forth. The more that you want to have powered, the more expensive it is, just with quantities of power walls or batteries in your garage or whatever it might be. So. Yeah, so that's a newer inverter technology that isn't quite available. You could always replace your inverter with a newer one. But it's not that much power. It's for those that understand power profiles, it's about 12 amps and 1,200 watts when the sun's shining. So it's not much at all. You can barely plug a fridge in, but you could probably run a small fridge off of it. Plug in your devices, that type of thing. It's really, it's not something that's going to do much, but it's something. Keep your radio operating. So, yes. Great question. So do solar clients, mine or others, find it economical to drive electric cars with solar? And I'll speak from experience. I think there's a couple other EV plus solar owners here. So there's a lot of ways to take advantage of this. You can, I drive a Leaf when I'm not commuting to Santa Barbara, and I have a solar system at my house. And what happens is during the day, I actually produce power at a higher tier, a higher rate, because I'm on a time of use rate schedule. So I get credited 40 cents a kilowatt hour for my power during the day. And then I buy that power at night around 10 cents a kilowatt hour to charge my car. Absolutely economical. I actually did the math, and it was cheaper for me to lease a vehicle and not pay gas and run off the sun than it was to have a vehicle with gas. So, yeah. Yeah, and I'll make sure to put something on my slides about that. I actually think electric vehicles might be the other part of this mix. Something that will happen, and it's just a matter of time, is something called vehicle to grid, where instead of you buying a bunch of batteries, your car could actually be your battery source. So that's really exciting. So if you have a Tesla or a Leaf, that you'd be able to do that. And it's just a matter of technology. They're doing it in a bunch of universities now in different locations. I think Leaf actually has, if you look up, I forget the name of it, but Leaf has the technology in Japan that they're actually doing that. So your car becomes your battery storage. And that not only gives backup power, but over the next couple of years, as the utilities actually figure out how their grid works, they're going to be able to incentivize you to say, wow, we need extra power during this summertime flex alert. We're going to pull power from all those people that have elected into the program where we can pull power from your car during that period of time. So the grid will become smart and really be able to manage itself with all of your energy systems if you choose to allow it. So that's not quite here yet, but all the technologies that are in place are preparing themselves to offer that. Sorry, my tangent, but to answer your question, it's just about the rate schedules with the utility. So you get credit for the power you produce at the retail rate on a month-to-month level. So the power that's going back into the grid through net metering during the day, all those electrons literally from your solar are powering whatever's in your house, and then they spin the meter backward, and you get the retail value of that power. So during the day, the retail value from 10 until 6 is a high rate. If you're on time of use at 40 cents a kilowatt hour, if you can manage that, you buy your power at night at a lower rate. So I literally get like a 4-to-1 economic value of my solar power. Yeah.
Take one more.
Yeah.
Are there still subsidies or rebates for solar going on that help with the cost of it?
Yeah, great question. So currently the federal tax credit is set to expire at the end of 2016. So that's pretty big for residential. So if you're going solar, or if you know people that are interested in solar on your home, that's 30% federal tax credit of the system. It's substantial. It definitely makes the payback look a lot better. So will that extend? I don't know. The industry has no idea. If there's some emergency legislation that'll go through, you all know probably the politics that are happening a lot better than I, because I'm working pretty hard, but I am tracking it. And I have a 50-50 right now of whether that'll get extended. For that system. It has to be up and running. Yeah, so if you bought 2 systems, you could get the tax credit on everything. But it has to be, so let's see, you have to install it in 2016. So it has to be up and running by the end of that time. So it's a good time to start looking if you haven't looked. Yeah. Yes? Yeah, there's a lot of technology out there, and I track everything really closely, and I listen. Anytime someone brings new technology, I'm all ears, because that's, I actually taught a class 4 times at UCSB Extension on solar, and I would have my students do research on new technologies, so I could actually have like research assistants and learn. Because it's amazing what's coming out, but I never knew why we had research papers. It was for the professor. So essentially, like, there is technology out there, but it comes down to cost and implementation. So by reducing the cost and streamlining installation process, the economies of scale is actually better to use the stuff that's available right now that at the current efficiencies. But I'm always open to new technologies. Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much. And just an announcement, Ronaldo's going to be the first customer. So he's going to put solar up at his house and probably do a battery backup. And so leave these at the front if you haven't filled out. Leave them with Kristen, who's sitting there in the back. Will you raise your hand, Kristen? Hand these over there, and then we'll have another presentation next month. And we want to get started, and everyone's enrolled by the end of the year.
If you have any specific questions that you want me to include in my presentation for next month, I'm not sure how long I have, but I do want to kind of go into some of the depths of the technology and how it works. So please write them on the cards and leave them, and then I can make my presentation accordingly. So thanks.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
So we're going to do a little set change when we bring Bob Perry, our Director of Research, up here. So Bob is going to talk a lot about SBR3 and the work we've been doing there, and let's give him a hand. Bob Perry.
Oh, okay. Technical transition here. So last month, we were priming for our trip to Oxnard, which was a great success. For those who haven't heard, we got down there in time, and the judge had scheduled 2 hours for comments, and it went about twice that long. And I was really proud of everybody who attended and spoke. I think combined, all the comments really hit on all the points that we needed to hit before her. They limited us to 1 minute apiece, so people really had to economize on their statements. But everybody did a great job, and we were kind of at the end, which I think turned out to be a good thing, because that was the last impression that was left upon her as we finished the proceedings. So it's kind of hard to tell what impact you have from that, but I think we did make a very big impact. And again, I want to thank everybody who went down. So the next thing that we're involved in is a policy hearing regarding distributed resource planning. And what that is that's basically the utility companies presenting plans to the Utilities Commission on how they would like to set up distributed energy systems like the community grid that we are trying to put together. So it's a really important time for us to go through these plans and, make comments, try to get them to be as forthcoming and to streamline things as much as possible to make it easier to develop distributed energy here locally. So we're a part of that. I'm going to be working on comments for over the next 2 weeks, and we file them at the end of the month, and then hopefully we will get a positive response later this year. A lot of groups involved in this hearing are really trying to be aggressive about pushing the Utilities Commission to be more progressive on renewable energy. And so I think there's going to be a big impact there. But I've read through the Southern California Edison Plan. It's 247 pages, 400 pages with exhibits. So there's a lot to go through, but it was a very good first draft. And I want to discuss one of the concepts that they put out in their plan, and it's called locational benefit. And what that refers to is where a property is sited in relation to the distribution grid, what value does that location have as far as being able to offer distributed energy to the community. And so I took this exercise and I thought about where right now would be the best place to try to develop solar energy as kind of the first step. And I decided out here that right out here around Stork and Hollister really is a great place to put up a lot of solar energy, because you have all these big commercial buildings. You see this Isla Vista substation is located right there within, it's a mile from the Citrix headquarters to the substation. So you can see all these properties are within half a mile. And then this substation is only 2 miles from the Goleta substation, which of course is the main substation that distributes power everywhere within the system. So I basically audited all these buildings and found that if we were to solarize the rooftops and parking lots of all these areas, we could generate up to 24 megawatts of power just from these roofs alone. And you can tell that there are a lot of other roofs that I haven't included here, just due to time, mostly. But just from these alone, I mean, 24 megawatts, that's a tremendous amount of power. Yeah, we need to get between 80 and 100. It depends, a lot depends on what we can do from an energy efficiency standpoint, how much we can reduce load. But the flip side of that is we've got the desal plant coming online. We've got more electric cars coming online. So, you know, where our overall load is going to go, my bet would be it will increase over time. But yeah, 100 megawatts would definitely cover the difference between the sub-transmission lines and the transmission lines that are prone to failure. Another great aspect to this area is that the Isla Vista substation feeds energy to UCSB, which is under a mandate to become carbon neutral by 2025. We are going to be holding a big meeting with them later this fall to kind of coordinate their efforts with what we're doing. But I know for a fact that they've determined that they don't have enough roof space on their campus to meet their power needs. So there's a market right there for a local market for energy that we can tap using these various rooftops. Another thing I want to point out is the size of the parking lots here, and really throughout this area, I'm finding that parking lots are really the low-hanging fruit when it comes to putting up solar energy, because a building can have structural issues, there can be aesthetic issues if you're dealing with, you know, tile rooftops. There can be a number of things that can slow you down, but who doesn't want to park their car in the shade, you know? I mean, it's just a natural. And so if you look at these things, I'll go to one property in particular here. This is the Postal Service Distribution Center off of Stork. It's massive. This rooftop here will put out about a megawatt and a half alone, and you've got this huge truck loading bay, which you could put solar panels on, and then this very large open parking lot here. The parking actually could generate more solar than the rooftop, and together, it's possible you could have this area generating up to 4 megawatts of power. I mean, it's tremendous. Yeah.
I want to take some questions. I know there's some new people. Are there any questions that anyone has on this issue? Are we not explaining everything because we jumped right in?
Oh, sorry about that.
Not your fault.
Yeah.
Looks like everyone's following along. Okay, good.
Okay. So this is what I'm starting to work on, kind of in tandem with what we're doing with these distributed resource plans, and I'm hoping that by the time that hearing proceeding finishes, we will have developed something that is very much in line with what they want, that we can put on the ground very soon. And much like the program that we're doing with Allen Construction, to the extent that we can coordinate with the owners, we're going to be reaching out to the owners of these properties and bringing them up to speed. But if we can get them together and combine them to a larger bid, it will help drive the costs down because of the economies of scale. Yes?
How many acres would you need to generate 100 megawatts?
100 megawatts?
And how much fall off is there if you're trying to take land like in San Ynez and send it this way?
Right, right.
What's the drop off?
Well, there's a couple of metrics. One I've seen was that if you're doing like a ground solar field, the metric is 8 acres per megawatt. I think that's it's somewhat dated. I got that from the Department of Energy. It's a couple of years old. I think probably you can drive the amount of acreage down because the efficiency of the panels have gotten higher. So that's one metric. The other metric is that with 16% efficient panels, 80 square feet of panels will give you a kilowatt. So 80,000 square feet of panels should give you a megawatt. So let's see, this roof here is 233,000 square feet. Now, I mean, if you covered every square foot of that, that's almost 3 megawatts. Of course, you're probably not going to be able to do that. Even if you were to only be able to cover half the roof with solar panels, that's a 1.5 megawatts right there. So that's kind of the metric I use, because I look at the square footage of an area. I look at, what's the likely percentage we could cover with solar panels, and that's how I derive an estimate as to what how much solar power we could get from that. We're, working with a company that's developed a unique suspension mounting system. We're hoping that, that they'll be able to start producing pilot projects with their technology, because technically, by suspending them, you can do a much higher percentage of solar panels and avoid a lot of the structural issues with some roofs. So that's kind of a work in progress, but I'm looking at this, right now using traditional mounting techniques. But everything's subject to change. So that's basically what I have to show for now. I just wanted to kind of give everybody an indication of the vast potential. I mean, this is just one area in Santa Barbara. I mean, you've got La Cumbre Plaza that has a lot of roofs. You got the commercial retail section in Santa Barbara. I mean, there's just tremendous amount of potential to develop solar. And a lot of it depends on where it is located in connection with the distribution system. And if you're in an area that's kind of far away from a substation, that's when you want to look at possibly setting up a microgrid, actually. Set up your generation and storage and make things more internally resilient amongst the neighborhood or community out there. Yes? Okay, we'll take that with us and then answer that when Sean comes back. I know that with the large installations, the costs are a lot less because of economies of scale, and payback periods are generally 8 to 10 years on these types of investments. So, yes. Well, that comes down to the mounting system that you use, and then like I said, the condition of the building. If structural changes need to be made in order to support the weight of the panels on the roof, that adds cost to the system. The nice thing about parking lots is that all that is not part of the equation. It's just the cost of the mounts and maybe resurfacing the parking lot before you put it up. And the suspension mounting uses about half the amount of steel that your traditional mounting system uses. So if we can get that going, that should reduce costs as well. I'm not. I know that there are tracking rooftop systems, and it will add a premium, but it also adds capacity as well. I think if you're south facing, it's not that big of an advantage because you're getting the natural, you're getting direct sunlight naturally, because the sun's moving east to west, you're getting a longer period of direct sunlight. But yeah, if you were had to be facing either east or west, then you definitely want to be, something to track to follow the arc of the sun as it moves across.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. We talk about this stuff pretty much all day, so that's why I want to make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves sometimes. But that was great, and you can tell Bob lives in this world, and Sean is volunteering over here from the side to help consult with us on this stuff. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. I just volunteered you. I apologize. All right, so I want to introduce next the other side of the equation on SBR 3 is the community power, right? So we can make all kinds of grand plans, but the only way they're going to happen is if we rally the people in the community and rally our elected leaders as a result to put pressure on the state officials, the regulators, and the legislature, and the governor himself to actually get this to happen. So our community organizer and someone who knows about pressuring elected officials is Becca Clausen. Becca, come on up here.
Hey guys, good to be here. Thanks for coming. I'm here to give your local energy update, both dirty energy and clean energy. Mostly good news, some updates, and next steps. So first off, for those of you who probably already heard, recent reports showed that the oil spill was actually 40% larger than originally claimed by Plains All American. Also, some of you probably heard about that extra large sheen on the ocean a couple of weeks ago off of Coal Oil Point. It has been determined to be a quote-unquote natural seep. But if you think about the fact that these offshore oil rigs are being injected at really high pressures with chemicals and hot water, and then the fact that they were mandated to stop drilling after the oil spill means that there's extra pressure built up in those oil reservoirs. So there have been 3 extra large sheens on the ocean since the oil spill. And my personal theory, is that it's due to this additional pressure that these extreme drilling techniques were using before the oil spill. Let's see. Recent update is that the pipelines won't be back up and running at least until the end of 2015, early 2016, and we're going to try and delay that as long as possible. So stay tuned. As Bob said, the bus ride and the Utilities Commission hearing down in Oxnard was phenomenal. Raise your hand if you attended. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really feel like our job at this critical moment, at this crossroads, is to show up time and time again to remind not only our elected leaders, but all the decision makers and all the agencies that they need to deny these projects. We need to give them the courage and force them to do the right thing in this critical moment. So thank you all for coming down there. The next hearing, the final hearing on the 2 gas-fired power plants, is August 27th. That's a Thursday at 5 p.m. down in Oxnard. And I'm coordinating carpools down there. We're not gonna get a bus this time, but if you email me or sign up on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room, I will coordinate carpools, and it'll be pretty fun to ride down in a small carload of people, get to know each other better. Again, that's August 27th on Thursday. Really important that we shut down or get the PUC to deny these 2 gas-fired peaker plants. Some good news, the city of Santa Barbara voted a couple weeks ago to write a letter of opposition to the Phillips 66 rail spur project. So for those of you who've been following this issue, yeah, it's huge, it's great news. The Phillips 66 refinery just north of Santa Maria wants to attach itself to the rail line, allowing Bakken crude to come through our communities all along the coastline. Millions of gallons almost every day. Highly explosive, toxic stuff. So Forest Ethics and some other organizations have done a phenomenal job organizing. Just in the last few weeks, they're starting to tell me that there's actual hope that we can get this project denied. So that's great news. Thank you for all of you who show up for those things. Next step on that is that the county board of supervisors are going to be hearing that same issue on September 1st. So save the date. And you can email me about any of these things at becca@worldbusiness.org, becca@worldbusiness.org, BECCA, and I can give you some more details on all of that. Finally, great news. Earlier this week, Ventura County voted 4-1 to prioritize the Community Choice Energy Program for Ventura County as well. So they'll be joining us in that effort. And they allocated $50,000 toward the feasibility study. So that's huge. I wanted to just do so also, drum roll, we are, we are strategizing our big push for SBR 3. We are, just stay tuned for the next couple of weeks. We're figuring out who our targets are, who our allies are, and we feel like we really have some power building here to get the PUC to approve SBR 3, 100% renewable, local, resilient Santa Barbara. So in the next couple of weeks, you'll be seeing some emails about that, and I look forward to working with you more on that. And then just finally, we have our De Benevan luncheon on October 30th. We're looking for people who want to be table captains. That was actually my first experience with the World Business Academy a couple years ago, and it was wonderful. I brought about a dozen friends of mine to this luncheon to hear more about the World Business Academy and the great work that we are doing. And so please email me, becca@worldbusiness.org, if you would like to be a table captain. And now back to Matt Renner.
I forgot my clicker again. Will you hand me that clicker? Yeah, so the strategy, Becca was just drum rolling and then not really telling you quite as much as we can in the near future about, is just coming together right now. And we think we have a really strong strategy for actually getting the PUC to listen to the people of Santa Barbara who are going to be demanding a power system that isn't at risk of failure just from a big storm. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited. And we have elected officials who already know about this and are great champions, and we'll be asking you to make sure that the rest of them are paying a lot of attention, especially going into this election cycle. So that's all good news. Who's ready for some more good news, though? I remember. Yeah. Bernie Sanders. So we can't officially endorse any candidate, of course, and we're fiercely nonpartisan. And I don't even like getting involved in Democratic politics because if anyone remembers 2008, God, that was bloody, it's horrifying. But our friend Nancy Nancy is going to be taking your name and information if you're interested in Bernie Sanders. She asked me to make an announcement. So for those of you who want to sign up, please talk to Nancy. Yep. And we'll be, whenever the Republican nominees who are organizing in town want to come and make a statement, we'll introduce them as well. Quickly, I'm going to go through this quickly because it's a little bit, I want to get you guys out of here on time. But the World Business Academy has teamed up with a magazine called The Intelligent Optimist. And we are launching a program to try to bring good news to your inbox every morning. And the bottom line is that good news actually can change your consciousness. It's not boring good news like firefighter rescues kitten from tree. No, it's very sweet, right? It makes you feel good for a second, but then you realize that nothing's changed. I actually saw this on a TV in an airport, and I was looked like a lunatic with my camera phone trying to take a picture of this. And it's like, why is he so excited about firemen rescuing a kitten from a tree? Anyway, so it's not that. That's good. With the local news covers that every night, so you can tune in at 10 o'clock for that or whatever. We're talking about real solutions. And these are solutions like a new app to make life easier for diabetics using Instagram, possible leukemia cure, major medical breakthrough for patients, India to increase solar capacity 20-fold in the next 7 years. After fighting to go to school, a young Pakistani woman builds her own. More than 140 nations, US and China, adopt treaty to cut mercury. Get happy, celebrate the first UN International Day of Happiness. And that leads to a happy you. And these are happening every day, right? But if you pick up the newspaper, it's mostly doom and gloom about how ISIS is somehow going to invade America or something. And it's not true. The trend lines are positive. Our world is actually getting better. We have some major challenges. We talk about them here a lot. But I am incredibly hopeful because I was skeptical. I used to be a journalist. I thought good news was BS. And then I subscribed to the, I subscribed to the Daily Optimist, and this is 100%, I wasn't even excited about this project until it started showing up in my inbox every day. And I didn't read it every day. But then I'd open it and be like, oh, wait, And I realized that I was reading 4 or 5 of the stories out of 5 every day. That's way more than I read from my New York Times email that I get every morning. Because it's really powerful, actual news that has a solutions bent. And in our hearts, 98% of the time, we're solutions focused as humans. And we want good news. And we are not provided that. So this is an opportunity for everyone to sign up. 5 new stories free every morning. I want to give you a quick example of the difference between our traditional media and what The Optimist does. So this, who knows who this guy is? Right. And how does that make you feel in your body when you just see his face? Horrible. Because this young guy, this young racist, brutally murdered 9 black church members in a racially motivated attack in South Carolina. His self-described motivation was to start a race war. Just sit with that for a second. This is what we see 24 hours a day on CNN when it happens. But why don't we know who this guy is? His name is Devon Bogan. He's the director of the Office of Neighborhood Safety in Richmond, California. In 2007, he invented a disruptive social program that identifies the men who are most likely to commit violent crime in the city of Richmond, and they convened them at City Hall in an opulent, beautiful conference hall. And they had placards with all their names on them, and they invited them in, 17 of them. And they sat them down. This was the nicest luncheon any of these guys had ever been to. And they said, guys, today's the day you're changing your lives. And they talked to them and said, if you are willing to commit to doing your best to stay on the right path, we're going to give you what's inside this envelope. There's an envelope in front of them. They all opened it, and it was a check for $1,000. And they said, now every month that you stay on track, we're going to give you another one of those checks. Richmond went from one of the worst homicide rates in the country. They had 45 shootings at a city of 100,000. I was shooting almost every single day with a precipitous drop. In 2013, they're down to 16. In 2014, they're down to 11 homicides in the city. It was a turnaround, and it's changed the entire city. And it's because people believed in them. And they gave them a solution, and they had an advocate that would stand with them and try to help them get their life together. And that's the kind of innovation that's happening now. And he's saved way more lives than that other guy took. And he's doing it every year. And this is a trend that is scalable. It's a solution for the United States. And if this is the kind of information we're feeding ourselves and feeding each other, the world's going to shift. So, 3 a.m. every day, you're going to get an email with 5 of these headlines. And they're not all going to be quite that amazing, right? I picked the best one. But they're really powerful stuff. So, and if you want to subscribe and get 12 more, you pay $4.95 a month. Your money goes to the Intelligent Optimist to continue the service, and the World Business Academy is also supported through your monthly subscription. The good news is, for leaders, that optimism isn't necessarily innate. Unlike many personality traits and talents, optimism is one of the few emotions that people can acquire. And that's from the Gallup Business Journal, no lightweight. So when you're ready, sign up at b.theoptimist.com/OPI. OPI is the Omega Point Institute, one of the sister nonprofits of the World Business Academy. And I will also email everyone on our list this link as a follow-up to this meeting. So if you don't get it, I'll send it to you. And with that, I would just like to close on a positive note, which is that the energy in this room is proof that we're capable of big things and that this community can lead in the state's transition to renewable energy. I was just talking to one of our board members today about the necessity of the solution that we're going to be modeling if California is going to hit its renewable energy goals and if we're going to continue to be a leader in this country and in the world on renewable energy. So leave with the knowledge that just by showing up and staying in touch with us and working with us on this monthly basis, you're doing an important part of this, what I would call an energy revolution. So thank you.